My friends, the Lord is with you.
And also with you.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. When the angels had returned to heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go straight to Bethlehem and see this event that God has made known to us." They hurried and found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in the manger. Once they saw this, they reported what they had been told concerning the child. All who heard about it were astonished at the report given by the shepherds. Mary treasured all these things and reflected on them in her heart. The shepherds went away, glorifying and praising God for all that they had heard and seen, just as they had been told. The Gospel of the Lord.
Glory and praise to you, our Savior Jesus
I love getting to see all of your faces. This is so great. As many of you know, I am the proud mom of one wild little toddler. When I dreamed and wished for a child and imagined what it would be to parent that child, I suspect that my imagination went to places where many expectant parents' minds go. I thought of holding her for the first time, watching her wrap her finger around mine, having those dark newborn eyes look straight into my weary eyes. Those moments I imagined would be the most miraculous, and they were. But there was a part of parenthood that I didn't think about that is certainly equally miraculous. And it is watching my child learn, watching her world open up beyond my arms and loving gaze. In these past 2 years, I have watched my daughter Lucy learn to eat, to talk, to walk, and now I'm beginning to watch her understand her relationship to others and the emotions associated with them. When it's too cold to go outside, she says to me, "I feel sad." When she notices that her dad has a scratch, she goes to him empathetically and says, "Daddy has a boo-boo," and gives him a kiss. And when I put her milk in the wrong cup accidentally, she has a complete meltdown because communication and emotions are difficult to navigate, and sometimes they feel unbearable, whether you are 2, 42, or 82 years old. As I've watched this miracle of development, I've begun to think more seriously about how will we teach her about faith? How will we tell her about God? I want her to have a faith. I want her to have faith, but I want it to be rooted in love and hope and grace. I want her to have a faith that is expansive and leaves room for fear, for regret, for sorrow and shadows. I want her to grow up with a God that has taken me a long time to believe in. Not a God in distant clouds or a God that judges, but a God who journeys with us. A God who somehow chose to come to us as a newborn, who clung to his mother's chest, who wrapped his fingers around his dad's hand and looked into his mom's weary eyes with those deep, dark, newborn eyes. I want her to know about a God who learned to walk and talk just like her, a God that discovered language and wrestled with emotions, a God that knows what it's like to question, to feel afraid, and to even cry out. How do you teach that? My daughter has an adorable Fisher Price nativity scene with these cute little comical sheeps and shepherds and wise men, the angel and the holy family. And over the last month, we've sat together and played with it. And I've introduced her to all the characters. The first character that really stuck with her was Jesus. I think she likes that J sound and walks around the house saying his name. And it also helps that he's a baby because she likes babies. And so she likes baby Jesus. And of course, she's not all angelic with baby Jesus. Baby Jesus does go hiding a lot, and other characters take his place. And he's even traveled down our laundry chute once or twice. The names Mary and Joseph didn't really stick with her, though. She quickly forgot their names, but she didn't forget their roles. Last night, she sat down in the manger and said, "Baby Jesus, mommy, and daddy in the manger." And in that moment, as she proudly showed me what she knew, I realized that was the faith that my daughter needs to know. Baby and parents. That's the only world my daughter knows right now. The manger scene encompasses exactly what I want to teach her about faith in the simplest of terms. Home, safety, love, beauty, grace. My own mom has told me about this poem that she was told when she was a young mother, and that we hold our babies and look at them and say, "I cannot wait to teach you all about God." But unbeknownst to us, our babies look up at us thinking, "I cannot wait to teach you all about God." This morning, in our very simple readings, in the birth of this newborn Christ child, we are taught all that we need to know about God. In our first reading, the prophet Isaiah speaks to God's chosen people who have experienced exile, imprisonment, and slavery. In their despair and darkness, he comes as a light, strengthening them to continue on, to hold on. God is with them. They are God's redeemed. They are the holy and beautiful people of God. In our second reading, we are reminded of the most profound miracle of our faith that we so often forget, that we are here because of God's grace. There is nothing we could do to earn God's love, and this relationship with God is not a barter system. We are lavished in love not because of anything we've done or not done, but because God is love. There is nothing God can do but love us. And lastly, in our gospel, we experience that love made incarnate in a newborn baby. And in the gospel chosen for today, we take in that scene of that newborn baby through the eyes of both the shepherds and Mary. Just prior to where our gospel story begins this morning, the shepherds were greeted by an angel who told them to go to where the Messiah had been born. They listened, they went, and they stood in awe as they witnessed this tender moment of new life that would also become their own new life. They then left and told this to everyone they met, and astonished them. Mary, on the other hand, is said to have treasured all these things in her heart and reflected on them. In the shepherds and in Mary, we are shown what we are called to do this Christmas morning and all the days that lay ahead of us. Two simple things. We are to treasure God's presence in our hearts like Mary, and we are to share that light of God to the world like the shepherds. Like Mary, each and every one of us is invited to behold God as a mother beholds the mystery of her newborn child. As we look back over this year, a year that has been filled with so much pain and fear and sickness and injustice, I wonder, where have we experienced God being born into the world? Where in the midst of death did God's life show up? For me, I have found God being born into the world as I've cherished relationships in a new way. This spring, early on in the pandemic, Lucy's aunt would stand on one side of a sliding glass door, and we would stand on the other and put our hands up on the windows. And I felt so much love in that moment and hope that there would be a time again when we would hug and dance and play together. We've also spent many afternoons around campfires with family and friends just so we could see them, something that we wouldn't have done normally. And Lucy and I have befriended our older neighbors in our neighborhood. One of the neighbors and Lucy have developed a friendship together. They write chalk notes to one another on the sidewalk and leave little gifts for each other. I treasure all of these things in my heart. They are what have sustained me through these hard days and the difficult questions. Each and every one of these moments is God showing up, just as God shows up in the manger this Christmas morning. I want to invite us this morning to take a brief pause and practice this treasuring of God in our hearts. I want to invite you to take a moment right now to think of a time where God has shown up in your life this year. It could be as miraculous as holding your newborn grandchild, or as simple as enjoying a delicious orange on a sunny day. Where have you experienced love, delight, and hope in your life? I'm going to pause for a minute while you bring that experience to mind. Now, with that image in mind, I invite you to take in all of the details. What are you seeing? What are you touching? Who is with you? What are you hearing, smelling, and tasting? Take that moment all in again. What emotions are there? Surprise, joy, relief, love, hope. Treasure them in your heart. Let them find a home there. I'm going to pause one more moment and just let you soak that experience up again. On this morning, what we are shown once again is that God shows up in the simplest of ways. We don't need any grand theological concepts or lofty prayers to connect with God. Love incarnate is in the eyes of a newborn, and in the delicious taste of an orange, and in writing notes on the sidewalk to a toddler who lives down the street. This is God. This is faith. This is the mystery that you cannot teach, but you can live. And so God's love is simple, and our calling is simple this morning. Go and share what you have seen and experienced in your heart. Bring love to others. Astonish them just as the shepherds did. Go this morning and astonish the world with God's love. Reach out, offer kindness and care to others, and the world will be changed by love and breaking into the world. My friends, today we celebrate the story we have celebrated so many times before. A simple one, a newborn child, his parents, love made physically real in our world. Treasure it and go astonish the world with the love and grace that God has given you. Merry Christmas.